Hey guys, and welcome back to Cloud Engineering Projects. In today's episode of Cloud Engineering Projects, we will be working with a web traffic dataset. I quickly want to mention that I got this dataset from the University of East London during my cloud computing MSc program. So this dataset is the entire property of the university, and I'm only using it to make contributions to knowledge. So having said that, let's quickly get started. So this is the data set here. And as you can see, this data set represents activities, humongous activities of different people or different clients that make different requests to a website. So this first one here is the IP address of a person or a system that made a post request to this website on this date and time, and the person made the request to this URL. So the request was made using HTTP version 2.0, and the person got this request response back. Okay, so the total size of the response is this 1245.6, and then this is the response message from the request the person made. So this is the pattern of the data in this data set, and as you can see, the data set is quite huge. This is what we will be doing today. We will be cleaning up this data set and then posting this data set into Azure SQL Database. The reason we want to do this is, one, to show you how you can clean data using regular expression in Python and how you can send data from any file whatsoever to SQL Database. This is a very important project in cloud engineering journey, because as a cloud engineer, you have the flexibility to work with any kind of job title in the industry. So in my present job, I work very closely with data engineers that we do quite a lot of different interesting things with data. So yeah, so I want to bring this to you as one of the things that you will be doing in your cloud engineering journey. Before shooting this video, I have already created the database that I am going to be sending this data into. And if you are not familiar with Azure, I encourage you to quickly catch up with Azure. And if you are not familiar with how to create a database within Azure, you can check out one of my videos where I explain how you can create a database within Azure using different clients. So I'll bring up the database. So if I click on SQL Databases here, and you can see here, this is the database, basically. I have created it again before shooting this video. So I'll click into the database, and this is the overview page of the database. We're not talking anything about the database today, so I'm not going to be walking you through all of this BC interface. So if I click into the query editor preview to see what's in our database, and then I'll click continue. And because I have already gone through these processes before shooting this video, you'll be able to see that this database has a table already created within it, right? And if I do select all from web traffic, and I run this, I'll just hide this. You'll see that I've got quite a number of data in this database, right? So what I'm going to do now will be to I'll drop the table, drop table web, and if I refresh this now, I've run this SQL code. If I refresh this table will disappear because I have now deleted it. So we do not have the table again in the database. So the database is very clean, empty, and there is nothing going on in the database just yet. Again, before shooting this video also, I have prepared the Python scripts that we will be using to clean the data, and the same Python script is going to be sending the data from the TXT file and sending it into the SQL database within Azure. So this is the Python script that's going to be doing the magic for us. So the first question will be, why do we need to clean up the data? So if I bring up the data set again, you will see that we have some unnecessary information in this data set. This is an empty space. We basically do not need that. We have these double dashes here. We also do not need that. We have these opening angle brackets. We do not also need that in the database. We have this also, we don't need it. So quite a lot of different things that we do not require in the database. And as you can also see here, this HTTP method here and this URL are grouped together in this data set. Okay, so we will also need to process the data to split this into two different columns within the database. So these sort of things are what we will be doing using our Python code. And I have already prepared all of this before this video, and I'm only going to be walking you through the process and how this Python code works. Okay, so let's get to that. First thing first, obviously we will need to load the data sets into this Python code, right? And that is what I am doing here. This is the part where the data set lives, is inside users and my name, download, and then we can find the data set here, which is web.log. Okay. Now, this is a batch size of 1000 in this code. This means that every time I run this code, I don't want to send data to the database every time I clean a single row of data. So I want to clean this data, then group them together into batch of 1000. This means that each time I am sending the data to the database, I am sending a batch of 1000 rows of data to the database. So I am setting 1000 here as the batch size into this variable batch size. Okay. And I'll be using this later in the code. Right. So obviously, for us to do anything with the database, we need to make connection to the database. And this is the connection parameters that will allow us to connect to the database. So we have the driver, and then we have the server. This is the server that runs our database. And I can quickly show you that within the database. So if I go back here, so here you can see this is the database name. But if I want to see the server itself, I'll just come back to the overview here. I'll click on OK. And then I'll click on the server name here. So click on the server, and then we are now on the overview page of the server. You can see that here, right? So this is the server, and the server admin name is demo. And this here is the server name, which brought us to clicking into this data in the first place. So I'll go back to the Python code, and then you can see here that this is the server name, right? Then the database name, which is this. So if we are on the server page now. If I click on settings and then I click on the SQL databases, you can see the database here. If I click into it, we're now back on the database, right? And this is the database name, basically. Okay. So I'll go back into the Python code, and this is the username that will connect us to the server, and this is the password of the server. So I want to highlight that this is not the best way to declare the connection to your database. In an ideal work environment, you want to put this information, right, in a secured technology. For example, you want to put it in Azure Key Vault. So maybe in the future, I'll show you how you can put all of this information in Azure Key Vault, then make a connection to the Azure Key Vault using AZCLI or some other API engine that Microsoft provides to connect to the Azure Key Vault, and we'll be accessing the database using the Azure Key Vault information. But for now, I only just want to show you how this is done so that you see how we make that connection to the database. Okay, cool. That is that about this. So I mentioned something about data cleaning, and that is what we use this regular expression to do, right? So this regular expression is what cleans the data for us to remove unnecessary information from the data set. Okay, cool. So this function here, right, is what makes the connection to the database. This function here is what helps us to process the data, right, in the data set to remove the unnecessary information from the data set. So basically, this is the process log file function, which helps us to call this pass log line to process the data. And once the data is processed, we now put the data into an in-memory database, right, which is a list here, right? So we're taking advantage of a list data structure here to save our data set before posting it to the database at all. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned that it is just not normal for me to post every line of cleaned data into the database immediately after cleaning the data set, right? So this is the part of the code that helps us to save the data into in-memory database, and after the data in the in-memory database is up to 1000, then we will make a bash operation to post that 1000 pieces of data into the database. Okay, so that's what this process log file is doing for us basically. And then this insert bash to db function is basically doing the data insertion, which is posting the data to the SQL database for us. Then we have this run pipeline, which is the function that runs everything all together for us. And then here we have the entry point of our application, which calls the run pipeline. So when the run pipeline calls here, all of the code inside this run pipeline is executed. Okay, so basically that is what this Python script is doing for us. Is helping us to clean the code. After cleaning the code, it will save the code into in-memory database. Okay, so we're taking a good advantage of the in-memory database here. So once the data in the in-memory database is up to 1000, right? And as you can see here, if length of batch is greater than or equal to batch size, and remember that we set the batch size to be 1000 here. So if this is greater than or equal to batch size 1000, that is when we will now return the data, and then we will now post the data to the SQL database, which is of course a persistent database. Okay, so basically that is what the script is doing for us. It's helping us to clean the data, save the data into in-memory database until it gets to 1000 batch. So after that, we push that to the database. Okay, so right now I am going to run this code so that we can see this operation in action. But before I do that, obviously we need to create a table in the database before anything at all. Else we will not be able to do anything. We'll not be able to post the data to the database. So if I come back into this, into my database, and then click on query editor, then I'll continue as me. So if I drop down on this table, you will see that there's no tables yet in this database. So what I'll do firstly will be to create a table within the database. And I've already prepared the SQL code that's going to create the table for us. So I'll just paste that here. So this is the SQL code that is going to create the table for us. So I'll just click on run, and this has now run successfully. So I'll refresh the table, and then I'll drop down, and then you can see that we have now got a table called web traffic, and that is what we have created here, web traffic. Okay, so this same table is what I am going to be posting this data from this Python code into the database. And as you can see here, I am inserting into the same table that I've created, right? So having created that table, I'm going to now run this script. But before running the script, I'll go back to the database, and then I will just, let me clear this one out because I do not need it again. Then I'll do select all from web traffic table. So if I run this code, you will see that I do not have any results here because there's no data in the database just yet. So I'll come back to the Python scripts, and then I'll give this a run. So the Python script is now running, and if you give it a few seconds, we should start seeing data in our database. So I'll just come here and then come here. So if I run this one again, give it a run, there's no data yet because this has not posted any data to the database just yet. We'll give it a few more minutes and then retry that. May run it now. Yeah, as you can see now, we have some pieces of data in this database. Now, this is a typical data engineering responsibility, but as a cloud engineer, you definitely have to know how all of these things are being connected together, how data is batched, how data is streamed, how data is processed, because most likely 99% of the time we're working with a data engineer. And these are the types of responsibilities that you are all going to be collaborating together on. So I decided to shoot this video to bring it to your awareness that your journey as a cloud engineer doesn't just end with clicking around or doing deployment. This is another type of cloud engineering project that you are going to be doing in the industry. So the simple question will be, why all of this? Well, the direct answer to that is that having these data sets in a .txt file is not going to give us the technical and total authority on this data, right? Because having the data in the database now, right, you can now start to group this data. You can start to do a lot of different manipulations on this data. Say, for example, you want to get the total number of data that has the HTTP method of post, right? You cannot easily do that from this very boring .txt file, right? So with this, you can just do something as straightforward as select all from web traffic, where the HTTP method is equal to post, right? So if I run this now, give this a run, and then you'll be able to see that everything that I have here is a post method. And then you can count the total number of data that has this HTTP post method. So if I run this again, and then you'll be able to see that so far, because this Python automation is still running, is still processing data and sending it to the database. So far, we have 6,670 data that has this HTTP method post, right? If I run it again, now we have 7,331. The reason for the increase is obviously because data is being sent almost every time to the database from this Python script that is still running, right? So that is it, guys. That is how to work with data sets and sending data from any file. You can do it from any file basically to the database.